Hey, everybody. Welcome to Five Fast Questions. Today, our guest is Jeff Phares. And Jeff is the author of four different wood carving books. He's won many prizes, ribbons, and awards for his wood carvings, and there are private collectors who really treasure his work. He's also had his carvings featured in a number of art galleries, and the realism that he achieves with his carvings is just amazing. I have admired them for a very long time. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jack. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. I've really been looking forward to the opportunity. And
Yes, this is a real treat for me.
well, we've got these five questions to share, and we'll start off with the first one, the
Oh,
story.
okay.
Um, Tell us, Jeff, how did you get started in wood carving?
Well, it started. I always piddled around with it, messed around with it when I was in high school. I almost flunked chemistry because of it. But I had my pot back when you could take a pocket knife to school,
Yep.
and I'd sit back in the back of the room and chip away on this little thing or some little handheld item I could stick in my pocket. And my teacher says, if you're going to do that, you have to clean up the chips, Jeff. So anyway, she was a great gal. But now I pretty much, when I really got going was went on a family vacation to Branson, Missouri, of course, of all places. And of course, there was Engler Block up on 76 Boulevard there. And my folks and the friends they went with had a bunch of younger kids who were my brother's age. And so I was old enough to drive. So what they did, I told them, I said, they wanted to go to the water park. I didn't. I wanted to go check out all those little cool carving shops that I saw.
Right.
I said, okay, well, you can take the car and we'll go to the water park and you just do your thing. Well, I went to this one shop. I cannot remember. It's not there anymore. But I went in there and I was admiring all the carvings, a lot of Harold Enlow's work.
Right.
Pardon me. Harold Enlow, John Henry Thompson, they used to carve big cigar store Indians and things.
Yep.
And Dean Troutman's work. And a lot of the guys I don't get to see much anymore, I was about 16. And I went in there and I found, they sold books and blanks and knives and chisels. It's like, oh, great. So I told my folks bought me a palm gouge, a little U gouge, bought me a knife, a bandsaw blank, and a Harold Enlow carving hillbilly book, and Andy Anderson, of all people's, book, which was way before my time.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic. So, yes. I came home, I tried it. The knives weren't sharp. And I'm like, this is hard. And so I went back to being a high school kid, playing ball, chasing girls, that kind of thing. But anyway, I picked it up again when the year my son was born, 1984. And I went to mom and dad's. I'm like, do you guys still have those? Oh, they bought me a V-tool too. And so I said, you guys still have my carving tools, my couple of those books, and they're like, yes. And so I got them out, and of course they were not sharp.
Nope.
So I messed around for a year fighting it. And I still have the very first carving I ever completed. It's awful. So anyway, so like I said, I just started with the books but my interest really got started. Let me digress a bit. My 8th grade shop teacher was a wood carver, and he would give us our assignment, which usually was sanding all the time, which I grew to hate. But he would give us our assignment for about the first 10 minutes, and then he'd sit up at his desk with his feet up on it and sit there and carve things. And that's where I got interested. And then we went to Branson. Like I said, I put the tools away because they weren't sharp. It wasn't no fun. I picked it back up in 84. And I messed for a year with dull tools. And then I was looking for carving supplies, and a friend of mine that I went to school with in my class His folks had sent him down south to study like decoy carving,
Right. Yeah.
pretty intricate stuff. He was awesome at it. And so I called him up and asked him where I could get wood, books, tools, etc. Well, I went, he told me to go to Bellevue, Illinois, which is about 2.5 hours from where I lived at the time in Illinois. And so I go down there. Well, I had fish tanks. And there was this particular store I would buy my supplies for. So I went in there to get some supplies while I was on my way. And I got talking to the fellow that owned it. And he said, where are you going today? You were just down here. I said, I'm going to Belleville to find some wood carving supplies. And he says, you a wood carver? I said, no, but I'd like to be. And he says, you got a minute? I said, yeah. So he makes a phone call and puts me on the phone with his younger sister. And his name was Leo Lanham. Her name was Jeannie Lanham. And their father was also a carver. So I talked to her and told her what I was wanting to do. And she says, well, why go all the way down there? Says there's a fella named Joe Wanamaker that lives right about half a mile from where you're at right now. And I'm like, okay. So she says, I'll call him and tell him you're coming. Well, I got there. Of course, Joe and Kay, his wife, two of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. They were awesome. Joe was a phenomenal wood carver, sculptor. And so I went to his house and I spent about 2.5, 3 hours there, and he let me look at all of his stuff. And so then after I met him, I had bought a couple of tools, and I got home with the tools I bought from him. And oh man, it carved so great. And so I took my others down there. He taught me what sharp meant. And after that, it was history, So anyway, I started carving in '84, and then about 1991, I was primarily self-taught, and I just learned Harold Enlow's books were the best, and I got them all. And so I would study his books with the pictures, and everything was so clear, so explained so well. So I got involved in the wood carving world, and was welcomed with open arms, of course, because they're all wonderful people. And so anyway, I lost my train of thought. So when I met Joe, and he got me involved in the International Woodcarvers Congress, because I started doing some realistic pieces on my own. Yeah. And of course, I was a fan of John Burke, Fred Carrington, Fred Coslow, Harold Enlow, all those guys. And I thought I wanted to fill my house with it, but couldn't afford to buy it, so I thought I would try it. So anyway.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So like I said, the rest is pretty much history. And so in '91, I had entered some realistic pieces. Of course, there were so many anatomically things wrong with them. And so I met John Burke. I was standing there. I was up there at the show by myself, just looking. I'd sent some entries up. And so I went up because I was a lab assistant for 13 years. I made animal vaccines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that'll be probably another question here you got coming up. But anyhow, so I'm standing there looking at my pieces, and all of a sudden, some arm wraps around my shoulders, and this guy, this great big guy says, "You Jeff Phares?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Son," I says, "I can help you. You need to take my class." I'm like, "Okay, it's John." And so I said, "Well, where, how much, when, I have a job, I'm going to have to take vacation." He says, "It's in July at Dome College in Crete, Nebraska." He says, "Just show up." And I said, "Okay." So I showed up. I took his class, which was phenomenal. It was the first wood carving class I'd really had, other than the tips and tricks Joe had showed me a few, And so I was in John's class. It was a week-long class. And then the following year and several years after that, I was his assistant for about 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And then I started teaching my own class out there. And he's the one that basically taught me how to teach and straightened out a lot of problems I had with anatomy. So I learned very much, very quick in a week, and I'm still recall on that, And so,
That's,
yes, from
that's
then on, I started teaching there, and then people would, ask me to come and teach, and I'd entered some shows in Texas and the Congress, of course, and Indiana out there, and so that's just kind of how I got started.
That's a great beginning with a lot of great foundational work there and some great
Yes,
mentors. Yeah.
they
So
were wonderful people. And
if
then since then, I have had. Oh, I'm sorry. Since then, I have had a class. I took a class with John, of course, and then teaching with him was a major learning experience over 4 or 5 years. And I continued on out there until the workshop didn't happen anymore. The
yeah.
dome experience still does, but his workshop doesn't. And
So if you
so,
had
yeah, and so I got a privilege to go over to Austria
oh
to
wow.
help Alp, and got to work with a fellow named Pascal Worth, phenomenal carver, great instructor. He's just a great, great guy, And we had a friend of mine that was one of my private students. He's the one that took me over there, and so, like I said, I've had John, Pascal. I did do a clay class with Joe Dampf
Hmm.
back in '91, I think. And I've been doing this full time pretty much since 91, 92.
Wow. And I would imagine all of that really, really builds and helps. If you were able to talk to a beginner, Jeff, and give them some advice, what would you say to them?
Don't become a woodcarver if you want to get rich. If you like college food, go for it. I'm kidding. I would tell them to don't be afraid. Make sure your tools are sharp. And, when I was starting, I had these ideas. I could see them in my head, I
Yeah.
can't draw very well at all, but I can carve what I see or what I want, And so I would tell them, be creative. Don't be stilted or stifled by, they said this, they said that, they said this. Oh, I can't do this because it's against the law. No. I would tell them, have your tools sharp first, and probably start with basswood. It's easier. And
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Jeff, because I
yes,
remember seeing a post on social media from a person who was just starting out. And
mhm,
a lot of people talk about wood carving being therapeutic for them and relaxing. And this
yes,
person, he posted that he was getting anxiety just looking at the block of wood. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's just a piece of wood.
yes. There's more out there.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
know exactly
don't
how
be
you felt.
afraid to experiment, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And when I started, I carved a little bit of everything. Um, but my favorite thing was the Western theme, human
Yeah.
form, and that's kind of what I specialize in over all these years. I
Oh,
do
that's
car. I like
awesome.
to carve horses. I've raised horses all my life, so that was kind of an inspiration too. But yeah, that's basswood is probably a good choice.
Well, let's talk about an accomplishment. I mentioned some of the ribbons, awards. You've achieved so many things in the world of wood carving. Which one would you say you're most proud of?
Well, I had won third best show at the Congress, the International Woodcarvers Congress in Iowa. It was in Davenport at the time. It's now in Maquoketa. And I got beat by Gerald Copeland and Fred Codswell. I wasn't complaining. I was just shocked when I got up there to see the show, But anyway, I would have to say that. And then one of my carvings made the cover of Chip Chats one year. And I got that hanging on my wall. And so, yeah, I would have to say those.
Yeah. Well, I love your carvings. I love looking at them. They are
Oh,
just
thank you,
amazing. Let's get a fun fact here, Jeff.
sir.
So, what would you say is a fun fact about you that most people would be surprised to learn?
Well, along with carving, like I said, I was a lab assistant for 12, 13 years. We made animal vaccines, and I also play guitar. Love music, and I've been
Okay.
playing since I was about 8 years old. That's when I started that. And between that and, like I said, I was fortunate enough that me and my father raised horses pretty much since I've been born. so that was a real treat.
Yeah. And, I've talked with a number of folks recently. One guy, Blake Lunsford, told me he's learning to play banjo. Roger Stegall told me he plays guitar. I know Chris Hammock plays guitar.
Oh, yeah. Chris does, yes.
Seems like there's a whole band out there somewhere.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when we go to John Burke's workshop, John played guitar and sang. He was an entertainer before he was a woodcarver.
How about that?
Huh. Yeah. And so we'd get together and he'd say, "Bring your guitar, Jeffy." I said, "Okay." So me and Jack, Stu Martin would play a wash tub bass with a rope on it. And whoever was at the workshop that had a harmonica or banjo, whatever, another guitar. I know Dave Stetson picked up guitar afterwards. And so we'd all just sit up there and everybody was there, would sit. We'd put on a little entertainment fun thing, and
Yep.
after that.
Yeah. Picking and grinning.
Picking and grinning, basically. You got it.
Well, we're down to the fifth question already. So, Jeff, let's talk about the resources that you have available for folks, carvers, and where they can find them, like your books, website, classes that they might want to sign up for. So, talk about that stuff for us.
I have the books out, of course. They can be found on Amazon. Barnes and Noble can order them. Any wood carving supply place will have them. And I do have my classes. My schedule is posted on Facebook on my page. So if anybody's on there, they can find my schedule. So right now we've got New Jersey in May. The American Wood Carving School is a great resource. Jerry Citrullo, he sells stew-by tools, which are great, and has classes ongoing there, and from clay sculpture to painting to wood carving.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I go there in May, and then I'm in Iowa in June at the Congress. I've been back there. This will be the third year now, and teaching there, and then in Branson at Engler's in July. This will be my second year down there. And then Vic Hood's studio in Leapers Fork, Tennessee in August. So,
well, that's great. And all they have to do is go to your Facebook profile. They'll be able to.
Yes, and they can find out pretty much. Or if they Google my name, a bunch of carvings of mine will pop up.
Yeah, they will.
And probably my mugshot. I don't know. But anyway, yes. Products, I'm a big fan. I'll give you a few things that I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
And I know there's so many resources out there right now. And about like the club here in Morro Bay the other day, I mean, they all were trying to find cottonwood bark.
Yeah.
And so I told them about a Facebook page called Cottonwood Bark Lovers. And you can go there, people find a tree that's dead, they sell it, they can get it there. I'm a big supporter of Cuts All Products, Typhoon, and Mampa Tools is a great, great resource. If you're into power, all this is for power though.
Yeah.
Which I use both. When I started, I thought, oh no, I got to do it all by hand. Give me an M80 and drill a hole, stick it in there and blow off what you don't want. I'm not a purist. but but yeah, and then like I said about the books, the chisels that I like, I've got a few of everything: Swiss made, Stubai, Henry Taylor,
Mhm.
Harmon, OCC, which I think has changed hands, but they still make
Yeah,
phenomenal tools. Yes, I
yeah.
love them. And with that, Chip Chats Magazine, Wood Carving Illustrated. My books can be found, like I said, on Amazon, Fox Chapel, or the bookstore could probably order them.
Yep.
And so yes, that's usually the best place. I used to take them with me a lot, but it got to the point where I'd have a case of books and I'd get there and I'd sell one or two and I'd have to haul them back and forth, And the people's like, "Oh, I already got that." So I just would tell them because I like for people to patronize the woodcraft shop. Larry and Carol Udis, when they were open, were wonderful people and instrumental in me doing what I do. And then, of course, I worked for Woodcraft part time after I was done at the lab. And then, like I said, I pretty much been doing it full time since then. But like I said, the resources, I would tell people to look, just, you know, there's so many out there. I mean, you got Chris Willock's place, Ivan, up there in Minnesota. There's uh, a lot. I get a lot of stuff. There's a place. There's a tool that looks just like a Swiss made, but they are really good. I've used them. But the brand name leaves me. Shaft,
Oh, yeah.
SCHAAF. Yeah.
Yeah, shaft tools.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so, contact these people. And I would tell, look, you said beginners. I'm going to digress again a little. When I worked for Woodcraft, I was one of the wood carving guys, me and another fella. And so anybody come in with wood carving questions, whichever one was working, that's who they send them to. So people would come in. A lot of wives would come in around Christmas time, and they're like, "My husband wants to try carving. Which set do I need?"
Mm.
Well, I've been doing it long enough that there's no perfect set. Figure out the size you want to work and start off with 4 or 5 tools. You don't have to invest $5,000 right off the top, and see if you like it, and
Mhm.
then go from there. So
Yep.
yes, um, and people can contact me on Facebook or whatever via email or something. And if I can help, I will. But like I said, there's a lot of resources, a lot of good companies out there, and places that actually are keeping this alive. And so it's great.
Well, Jeff, I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure sitting and talking and hearing the stories and stuff, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well, Jack, I thank you, man. This is wonderful. This is really great. I'm so glad to hear from you, and it's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, well, listen, if there's anything I can do for you down the road, you just give me a holler.
Well, Jack, stay in touch,
All right, we'll do it.
and,
All right,
and I'll
folks.
enjoy your podcasts.
Well, yeah, we're doing our best, that's for sure.
That's right. That's all you can.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I want to remind you to stay tuned for another episode of 5 Fast Questions coming up soon. Bye bye, everybody.
Goodbye.